What do you think about affirmative action as a possibility for improving equality of outcome?
We can look to cases in which, actually, I would say that affirmative action works well in eliminating past discrimination, but I think we can look to cases such as Gratz and Grutter v. Bollinger, where it found that affirmative action policies were using unfair measures and were actually causing reverse discrimination. A more recent example of this is the 2009 case of Ricci v. DiStefano, where firefighters that were in the majority of the population were actually discriminated against because they had done better on tests than firefighters that were in the minority of the population.
Then you would be against my giving some of the other teams who are more diverse than yours 10 extra points on affirmative action.
You mentioned in your opening statement that one of the major movements to ensure the vibrant democracy was to bestow voting rights to more and more folks. Yet if you look at voting returns, especially in a local election where Tocqueville is very specific that local government was where it was at, how can you explain that? And then do you actually think that it works for a vibrant economy? Or, I mean, has it worked for a vibrant democracy?
An important thing to note is that when de Tocqueville traveled to the United States, our population was significantly less. It was around 13 million. Today we're at almost 300 million. So really de Tocqueville viewed a totally different society, which really put an emphasis and really involved people more in these small New England townships that were scattered through the colonies. So de Tocqueville had a completely different opinion because he had not seen the vast majority of people who have moved here, and it was harder for these people today to link together when de Tocqueville saw that they could link more easily when he traveled.
In his writings, Tocqueville noticed that Americans looked upon social authority with an eye of mistrust, and they believed that they would only claim its assistance when they were absolutely unable to move without it. So I think that there may be this idea among some American citizens that they don't need to rely on the government at all to solve the basic problems in their life. So they may see this as justification for not voting in elections.
You mentioned, I believe it was Article 3, but I may have misheard you. At any rate, I'd like to ask the question of how the Constitution, and in particular the Bill of Rights, may support the notions of equality of opportunity.
Well, one of the main equalities of opportunity that is granted in the Constitution is through the First Amendment. This grants everyone the opportunity to assemble and petition the government and the ability to free speech, which allows people to voice their opinions and take part in government and allows people a voice in their government.
And the fact that the Bill of Rights is actually applicable to all people on U.S. soil, not just its citizens, really makes the point that everyone is entitled to this, and these grant equal rights to even those who aren't citizens of our nation.
I think another equality of condition in the Constitution is under the 14th Amendment, which basically prescribes that all people within the United States, or even within the jurisdiction of the United States, are given equal treatment under the law. So while they may not necessarily be experiencing the same level of, or they might not be living in the same way, they're at least treated exactly the same by the government.
And do you think any of that is supported by landmark legislation?
The 14th Amendment, most notably through the doctrine of selective incorporation, starting with Gitlow v. New York in 1925, has used the 14th Amendment to apply the amendments 1 through 8 in the Bill of Rights to the states to make sure that all Americans and all the people in America are given the rights protected by the Bill of Rights.
And also the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 were also pieces of legislation that created equal opportunity between citizens and the government.
And recently, as we can see with the recent healthcare bill, this has also offered people a greater chance of opportunity to gain healthcare for everyone.
Good segue for my comment about the Tea Party. The Tea Party's been out there, active, involved. Would Tocqueville be supporting the Tea Party, ignoring the Tea Party, or condemning the Tea Party activities?
I think that de Tocqueville would absolutely like the Tea Party movement because it is showing an association forming in order to support their opinions against the government, and it's started at communities of people coming together to show their interests, special interests.
The measure of wealth right now, there's a huge gap that seems to be growing, and you look at studies that sort of assert that the income gap is growing and that there's more people in the bottom half. Can you explain in terms of the greater opportunity we've got, things like affirmative action and universal education, K through 12, things like that, but how come they don't seem like they're working? And are there other things that, whether it's government or other groups, can do to sort of give that greater opportunity?
Things such as NGOs, non-governmental organizations, can really lobby and put their weight behind certain enacting moral legislation. Groups such as the NAACP, who tried to attempt to help African Americans still to this day, even though civil rights was many years ago, non-governmental organizations can use their massive amount of people and connections and power to still enact legislation, although they are not members of the government themselves.
A more specific way that NGOs are helping with the growing disparity gap is with scholarships. There's been a great increase in the last few decades in scholarships for people of low income to attend higher education.
And we can see there may not necessarily be equality of opportunity in America. Not everyone might not have equal opportunity. However, people can still advance. As we can see with President Obama, he rose up with very few connections in his family. As we can see before that, the Bush family and Clinton family were president for years. And so we can see that people still have the ability to raise up and have opportunity in America.